Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Let me welcome you to Medzone African Motives. We are on Business Studies Grade 11. We are on Business Studies Grade 11. We are going to revise the paper which was written in Northwest Province. The paper which was written in Northwest Province has to try by almost to do revision and preparation for the term one sitting that you're going to have. And this is going to help even in the final examination when you are writing your business studies grade 11. So the paper that you're going to prepare ourselves with, it was written in March 2025. Like we've said, this is in relation to grade 11 business studies. So also we have also said that this paper was written in Northwest Province. Hope we are together on that. So let us now go to instructions and information. Instructions and information. With instructions and information, make sure that you don't make any mistake of going or attending to questions before you can go through the instructions. Make sure that we go through the instructions from instruction 1 to instruction number 8. They are very important. Some students lose marks because of ignoring this part of instructions and information. Instructions are very important. So as now as we are making the preparations, can we quickly go to section A, question 1? So here we are on section A, question 1, which we know very well that section A is a compulsory questions. There is no way that you can not answer this question, good people. So now we're going to start with question 1, and this is a multiple choice question. This is a multiple choice question. As it says, various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. You are to choose the answer and write the letter A to D next to the question number 1.1.1 to 1.1.5 in the answer book. And there is a given example of 1.16D. So that is that. Now let's get to the business of today, whereby now we are starting with question 1.1.1. As it says, social values and demographics is a challenge emanating in dash environment. So that is that. So now given these four options, which is micro, macro, market, and operational. So we want the correct answer. And you can see now that the correct answer is B, macro environment. Social values, demographics is a challenge emanating in the macro environment, of which we know very well that we don't have control over macro environment. We're talking of the lifestyle of our customers, our potential customers. We can't change that. We can't change their preferences and taste. So that this is a macro environment. Now coming to 1.12. The practice of showing favoritism towards one's family or friends in an economic or employment. The term is nepotism, money laundering, fraud, or corruption. So the correct answer there is A. That is nepotism. So if you favor one's family or a friend in an economic or employment term, that is a nepotism. And that is not allowed. And that can affect the business negatively. So that is a favor that you have towards one's family or a friend in an economic or employment term. Let us go to 1.13. Freedom Bank operates dash in the sector as they are specialized in offering banking services. So we have primary, economic, secondary, and tertiary. And the correct answer there is D, tertiary sector, because once we are talking about the services that are provided by businesses, all falls under the tertiary sector. So that is that. Now coming to 1.14. Top tip: workers participated in dash when they collectively refused to work. So we're talking about the workers of top tip. So when they collectively refuse to work, is it a lockout, picketing, strike, or go slow? So 1.14, the correct answer is C. Once they collectively refuse to work, it means they are on a strike. They are on a strike. Once they strike and refuse to work, once they stop working, once they stop production, it means there is something that do not sit well with them. And then by so saying a correct term, you're saying they are on strike. So 1.15, where we talk about a franchise. A franchisor is, then we're given these four options: a person or business who buys the right to produce, a legal contract between two franchisees, a person who sells the right to produce their goods or service to another person or business, a startup business. The correct answer is C. A franchisor is someone who sells the right to produce their goods or services to another person or a business. So the one who is buying those rights is a franchisee. So the one who sells the rights to produce is a franchisor. Hope we are together. We are together on that. So now let us move on to question 2, section B. Let us move on to question 2, section B. No, 1.2, sorry. Let us move on to 1.2. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. 1.2. So 1.2 is all about complete the following statements by using the words provided in the list below. Write the words next to the question number. So that is that. So this is the list that we are given. So we are to write the word next to the question number. So we have rent income, no limit, no, we have limited, we have non-profit companies, we have demographics, we have unlimited, we have cooperatives, we have royalties, we have psychographics, also we have full. So now let us attend to the questions. It says the dash of a country represent the characteristics of population such as age, gender, race, and so on. So that's when we are talking about the demographics. So the correct answer there is demographics. Demographics. So we know demographics is the statistical characteristics of population. Like that's when we're talking about age, gender, income, or location. And that helps the business target the audiences. That is why we are saying demographics is a correct word for that. The 1.22, the aim of this form of ownership is to render services, not to make a profit. Not to make a profit. The aim of this form of ownership is to render services. So the bottom line is not to make a profit. So the correct term there is non-profit companies. Non-profit companies. This is a correct term. Then we are saying that is non-profit companies. So that is that. So with non-profit companies, we know very well that those are the organizations focusing on social causes, not making profit for owners, often rely on donations and grants. So that is that. Now we come to a Ganda Logistic has a control over demographic environment. So we are given 1.23. 1.23. So it says Ganda Logistic has no control over the economic environment. There's no control. The answer is no. So that Ganda Logistic has no control over the economic environment. Remember, economic environment falls under macro environment. So business has no control over on macro environment. That is why this becomes a correct answer. So now let us move on, good people. Let us move onto another question. 1.24. Members of Cisco Ltd have dash liability or for debts of the business. So they have what? Limited liability. Limited liability. They have limited liability. So a company structure limiting owner's liability to their investment. That is why I said members of LTD have limited liability over debts of the business. So if the business goes bankrupt, their personal belongings are very saved. They are protected. So that is that. Payments made to the franchisor based on the turnover of the business is, that is royalties. The correct answer there is royalties. So royalties, those are payments to owners. Those are payments to owners of the intellectual property, like authors, musicians, for use of their work. So when you pay the franchisors, you are paying them the royalties. So hope you get to that. Hope you get to that. Hope you understand that. That is that. So now let us move on to section B now. We are on section B now. And section B is that we are to answer 2 questions from this section. But as we are trying to prepare and we are trying to make you fit for the coming exam, the coming test of term 1, also the examination that we're going to write, we are to attend all these questions. Get me straight on that. There is also note that you are given if you are to choose a question. That note is it says clearly indicate the question number of each question that you choose. The answer to each question must start on a new page. Example question 2 on a new page, question 3 on a new page. That is a very important instruction in future or when you are writing your test or exams where you are to choose. But as we don't choose, we attend them all. Now we are on question 2, business environment. We are under business environments. That is that. Point 1, read as follows. Name any 4 components of microenvironment. Remember, we have said a microenvironment is found within the organization, where we have said the organization has a full control over the macro environment. So now we have to mention how many, any 4 components of microenvironment. So here we are on question 2.1, business environments, components of microenvironment. The first one is a vision. Vision, mission statement, goals, and objectives. So when you talk of vision, a vision is the future goal or dream. When you talk of this, we are talking about a future goal or a dream of the business and what it wants to achieve in the long term. For example, a company may have a vision to become the leading clothing brand in South Africa. That is their vision. That is their dream. What about mission now? With mission is that a mission statement explains the purpose of the business, how it will achieve its vision. So it explains how it's going to achieve the vision. How is it going to achieve that dream that we have talked about? For example, a restaurant's mission may be to provide affordable and quality meals to customers. That is that. Now we have goals, good people. We have what? Goals and objectives. So with goals and objectives, these are specific targets the business wants to achieve within a certain time. For example, a business may set the goal to increase sales by 15% within 1 year. That is what you're talking about when you're talking about goals and objectives. That is that. Now we have also management structure as a component of microenvironment. With this management structure, that is when you're saying this refers to the hierarchy showing different levels of management and their responsibility in the business. For example, in company may have top management, which we know very well, we're talking about CEO, middle management, we're talking about managers, as well as lower management when we are talking about supervisors. Hope we are together, good people. Then we also have organizational resources as a component of micro environment. These are the assets and resources used by the business to operate effectively. For example, resources include money, machinery, employees, and raw materials. Those are the resources that we're talking about. Also, another component is organizational culture. With organizational culture, we are talking about the values, beliefs, behavior shared by employees in the workplace. Good people, for example, a company may promote a culture of teamwork and respect among the employees. That is an organizational culture. That is the culture of that business. We also have this component, management and leadership. Management and leadership. With management and leadership, it means that management plans and control business activities, while leadership, they do what? They motivate and guide employees. That is that. Where we can say, for example, a manager may motivate workers with rewards to increase productivity. Are we together, good people? Then we have 8 business functions as well as a component of micro environment. This is when we're talking about, these are the main operational areas that ensure the business runs effectively. So hope we're together. Let's quickly rush and run to 2.2. 2.2 read as follows. Discuss the functions of trade unions. Discuss what? The functions of trade union. So here we are on the functions of trade union. Functions of trade union. Functions of trade union. So the first function of trade union says improves conditions of employment. Improves conditions of employment. Meaning to say, we are saying these are the main operational areas that ensure the business runs effectively. That is that. Get that straight. And for example, those include marketing, finance, production, human resource, purchasing, administration, as well as public relations. That is that. Ensures that all employees are treated equally in the workplace. Employees are treated equally in the workplace. So this is where we are saying trade unions make sure that workers are not discriminated against and are treated fairly. That is that. Representing the interest of general society and minority groups through media and negotiations. So this one we are saying trade unions represent employees' concerns through media, negotiations, and discussion with employers. For example, a union may raise issues about equal pay for women workers. That is that. So let us move on to another point. Influencing government decisions. Influencing government decisions means trade unions influence laws and policies that affect workers. That's what it means. Representing employees collectively and individually. So here we are talking about trade unions on behalf of groups of workers or a single worker in the workplace issues. A union may represent a worker who was unfairly dismissed. That is that. Improving material benefits of their members. Meaning to say trade unions try to secure the better wages and benefits for workers. Establishing minimum economic, legal, influencing economic policy and law. Meaning to say, as we are saying, it establishes minimum economic and legal conditions. Unions help establish basic labor standards such as minimum wages and working hours, playing a role as a moral institution that will uplift weak and oppressed and give them the dignity and justice they deserve. So here we're talking about protect workers from unfair labor practices. So the trade unions protect employees from unfair treatment and discrimination. Protecting workers from unfair labor practices and unfair dismissal. We've already talked about that. Take legal action on behalf of members when necessary. So that's when we are trying to say trade unions may take employees to court if workers' rights are violated. So that is that, good people. That is 2.2. Now let us go to 2.3. With 2.3 now, as it says, we are to read the scenario below and we are to answer the questions that follows. That is 2.3. Then we're talking about ulnar traders, UT. The management of ulnar traders is desperately trying to control its environment and the behavior of other business by forming power relationships. So they get vulnerable advice from powerful, influential people after inviting them to be part of the board of directors. Now we are to answer these questions that follows. Identify the way in which UT had formed a power relationship. So we have to identify that. Ways in which business can form power relationship. That is that. That is that, good people. So let us attend to that question. Ways in which a business can form power relationship. So ways in which business form power relation from scenario is persuasion of large investors. Persuasion of large investors. Meaning to say, we are saying business convinces wealthy investors to invest money into a company to strengthen the business. That is that, if you can go to that scenario. As it said, the management of an trader is desperate to control its environment and the behavior of business forming power relationships. They get final advice from power influential. So that is that they persuade large investors. So 2.32. 2.32 is that describe other ways in which business can form power relationship. So that is that. So we are here now. Other ways business can form power relationship. So that is that. So as it talks about business, we are talking about strategic alliance and partnership agreement. As it says, business form partnership agreements in order to benefit from each other's involvement. So two or more business cooperate and share resources to achieve common goals and improve competitiveness. That is that. So it further on says these partnership alliances help parties involved to benefit in infrastructure development and scarce skills. So company representatives will influence. As we are saying, this is going to also, these alliances are designed to build on the expertise of each partner and on the way in which they complement each other. That is that. So now coming to company representative influence. So this is where we are saying this representative fulfills an important function in trying to persuade investors to invest in a particular business practices. Meaning to say, we are saying a skilled company representative promotes the company and persuade investors and partners to support the business. That is that. People make decisions based on the company's image, personality and communication style, and power persuasion. Also, business must invest time and energy in recruiting the right person for this job. So now coming to 2.4. 2.4, as it says, suggest ways in which business can overcome competition in the market. So now let's quickly go to 2.4. So here we are on 2.4. Ways in which business can overcome competition in the market. It says management must ensure the business differentiates itself from competitors by tapping into what the customer wants. So here, this is whereby you fight for competitive advantage. You want to differentiate your business to your rivals. So that is why we are saying differentiating products. So business make their products unique and better than competitors' products. Get me straight. Business make their products unique, different from their competitors. So as to gain what? Competitive advantage. That is that. For example, a smartphone company may add special camera features just to be different from other companies of the smartphones. Also offering more personal services by being responsive to customers' needs and expectations. So you are talking about offer personal services, meaning providing excellent customer service to meet customer needs and expectations. That is what this means. Offering low cost extra sessions, improve credit terms, discounts, loyalty schemes, and etc. Here we are talking about what? We are talking about where you offer extra like discounts, extras like discounts, loyalty schemes. So business attract customers by offering special deals or rewards. These are special deals or rewards, charging the lower prices than that of other businesses. So here you charge what? Lower prices, selling products at lower prices than competitors to attract more customers. That is that. Selling products of superior quality, new products, services that the customers might be interested in. So here, this is where you're providing high quality products that satisfy customer better. By being the best employer that has well-trained, knowledgeable staff members that create better working atmosphere. Here, that is where you employ the skilled workers. That is where you employed skilled workers. Having well-trained employees improves service and productivity. Stepping up the marketing of the business by using promotional ideas such as posters, campaigns on the media. So here you are increasing marketing and promotion. You are promoting products through advertising and social media campaigns. That is where a company may advertise products on Instagram or even on Facebook. Updating the image of the business, such as painting the front of the premises, making the business looking modern and inviting. So this way you improve the business image. You are trying by all means to make business look modern, attractive, and professional. That's that. Keeping up with developments in the sector of the business sector. Following now consumer trends and investing in new technology. So here we are saying you are keeping up with industry development. That is when business must follow consumer trends and new technologies. That is that. Improving customer services and keeping them happy. So this is when you provide excellent services to keep customers satisfied and loyal with the business. So that is that. So now let's quickly go to question 3, good people. Let's quickly go to question 3. Question 3, it says, name 4 information aspects that must be contained in the notice of incorporation. So let's quickly go there. Aspects, these are our answers, aspects or information contained in the notice of incorporation. The first one is a type of company. Type of company, as it indicates whether the company is private, public or non-profit. So that is one of the aspect information contained in the notice of incorporation. Financial year end. Financial year. That is the date when the company closes its financial records for the year. That is that, for example, a company may have 28 February as its financial year end. Number of directors, meaning to say it shows how many people manage and control the company. These are the number of directors. Incorporation date. With incorporation date, this is the official date when the company was legally registered. Then we have registered address. So with registered address is that the official physical address of the company where the legal documents are sent. Company name. So that is the legal name under which the company operates. So that is that. Let's go to 3.2, good people. 3.2 is about elaborating on the meaning of secondary offering. Elaborate on the meaning of secondary offering. So here we are, the meaning of secondary offering. As it says, a secondary offering is an offering of securities by a shareholder of the company, as opposed to the company itself, which is a primary offering. So meaning to say, a secondary offering is when existing shareholders sell their shares to the public instead of company issuing no shares. Instead of the company issuing no shares. For example, an investor who owns shares in a company may sell some of those shares on the stock exchange. That is that. A secondary offering is the sale of new or closely held shares by a company that has already made an initial public offering. So that is that. So that is that. So let us move on to a 3.3. So here we are on 3.3. So 3.3, it says, read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. Kalo class LTD. Kalo class LTD. That is question 3.3. It says, Kalo class LTD specializes in the manufacturing of glass. KGL issued document inviting the public of the business, inviting the public to buy shares. So state the document that is issued by KGL in the scenario above. As we have read this, and then we have read that the specialist in manufacturing of glass and issued document inviting the public to buy shares. So what is that? 3.31. That is a prospectus. That is prospectus, as you can see. The correct answer there is prospectus. Here it is prospectus. So a prospectus now is a legal document that invites people to buy shares in a company. That is the invitation that we make to attract people to buy shares in the company. Hope you're together on that. Now 3.32 says, explain the aspect that must be included in the document stated in question 3.31, which is prospectus. So we want to know the aspects that are to be included in prospectus. So here we are on the aspects. The first aspect that must be included in the prospectus is that company overview, including the vision, mission, goals of the business. That is the first that we're talking about. So company overview, we're talking about vision, mission, and goals. So this provides general information about the company's purpose and direction. So that is that. So another one that we are to the other aspect that must be included is product or service portfolio. So with product, that is, describe the product or service offered by the company, the features of the product. That is that. You have to tell the features, how the product was manufactured, and that is that. Market analysis and strategy. So with market analysis and strategy, this explains the target market and marketing strategies of the company. For example, the company may target young customers through online marketing. So that is a market analysis and strategy. Management team. So with management team, that is when you're talking about information about directors, managers running the business. For example, the CEO's qualifications and experience may be included. Management team. The risk and potential of the business. Risk and potential of business. This is all about, this explains possible business risk and future opportunities. Hope you get that. Available financial and share information. So these are the details about company finances and share structure. That is that. Company assets and liabilities. With company assets and liabilities, that shows what the company owns and owes. So that is that. Financial position of the business. Also, it's very important to talk about that, to know where is the business lies. That is when we go through the balance sheet of the business. Profits and losses. So profits and losses shows whether the company makes profit or loss. So that is that. Cash flow of the business, that shows the money inflows in and out of the business. So that is that. That's when we talk about cash received from sales and cash paid for expenses. Prospects for growth. Prospects for growth. This is where we are talking about. This shows the future expansion potential of the company. Pre-incorporation contracts that have been signed. Here we are talking about contracts signed before the company was officially registered. Date of registration of the prospectus. Here we're talking about the date the prospectus was officially registered with authorities. So that is that. That's when you can talk of registered on 1st June 2025, for example. The minimum subscription. The minimum subscription. So a minimum amount of money needed from investors before shares can be issued. So that is that about 3.3. So now we are to go to 3.4. We are to go to 3.4. 3.4 is about the impact of advertising, impact of franchising, as a avenue of acquiring a business. That is 3.4. So we are to attend to question 3.4, not 3.3, but 3.4. Impact of franchising. So it means you're going to start with advantages. So here it is, impact of franchising, advantages of franchising. This is where we are going to start. So as it says, it allows business to buy a well-known brand which guarantees sales and good return. So we're talking about well-known brand, talking about well-known brand. So with well-known brand, we know that franchisees, those who buy the franchisees, benefit from established brand name. Those who are going to buy this, they're going to benefit from already established brand name. Purchasing a franchise is cheaper than starting a new business. That is true. So that is true. When you purchase a franchise, it's cheaper than when you start a new business, because already the business has got a reputation, customers are there already, the business is known already. So the business model is already proven and is successful. So that is that. For example, the franchise system already has successful operating procedures. So that is why we say it's cheaper than if you start from the scratch. A franchising reduces long-term financial risk. It reduces what? A long-term financial risk. So that is that. A business is based on a proven idea, and the product and service are tried and tested. They are tried and tested. So there are no expenses that you have to incur for testing a product. So everything is easy as the product are all known by the customers. A franchisee can get the support from the franchisor, which often includes training, advice, and marketing. We are going to get what? Advices from the franchisor as a franchisee. Because the franchisor can share even the marketing, shared marketing, advertising costs are shared among franchise outlets. So that is that. Forms of financing that are not available to the public often available to franchisee. A purchasing franchising could be cheaper than starting your own business. You've already said that. Business are able to use a recognized brand name and registered trademark, which helps them advertising and marketing. So already marketing and advertising is going to be easy because already this is known. The systems and operations of goods services are well established. There is often access to group support from other franchisees, a network of communication and legal advice. Established suppliers give bulk discounts as they form part of larger group. That is that. Also, the marketing and advertising costs are shared, so they are often lower than for non-franchise business. Management advice is often provided, so it is not necessary to a business to be a business expert. So you don't need to be a business expert because already there is advice that you're going to get from the franchisor. So like we are talking about the impact of franchising, then it means you have to talk about the disadvantages as well. Disadvantages of franchising. Disadvantages of franchising. That is that. So disadvantage is saying acquiring a franchise can be expensive initially out. So you're talking about high startup costs. We're talking about high startup costs. Meaning to say, we are saying buying a franchise requires a large initial investment. So a franchise may cost 1 million to start. There are often restrictions in the agreement in terms of how business should be operated. So here we are talking about operational restrictions. Franchisees must follow strict rules set by the franchisor. So that is that. One poorly performing outlet may risk the reputation of the entire franchise. So that is that when we are saying that. A large portion of profits is paid in royalties. Often franchisors do not deliver on their promises. So you will find out that you are paying the royalties, but the franchisors who sell the ideas to you or sell the business to you, they are not even fulfilling their promises. It is often difficult to sell a franchise or terminate a contract. So the startup cost may be a challenge without assistance from the franchisors. So that is that. So now we have to attend to question 4 now. We are to attend to question 4 as we are done with this question 3. So here we are on question 4. As question 4 says, give any 2 examples of contemporary socio-economic issues that pose challenge to business. That is, the question says you are to give 2 examples of contemporary socio-economic issues that pose challenge to a business. So here we are. That question, examples of contemporary socio-economic issues that pose a challenge to a business. Low income levels. Low income levels, that is when you're talking about low income levels mean that many people earn very little money. So they cannot afford to buy many goods. That is that. For example, if many people earn low wages, they may not afford expensive clothing, which reduces sales for clothing business. That is that. The other one is inflation. The other one is inflation. So with inflation, that is when you are saying is the continuous increase in the price of goods and services over time. For example, if the price of fuel increases, the transport cost of business also increases, which raises product prices. Also, we have social, cultural, and demographic issues. So with this one, this refers to changes in society, population size, age groups, cultures, lifestyle that affect business. Hope we get to that. Economic crime now. Economic crime, we are talking about the crime that refers to illegal activities such as fraud, corruption, bribery, theft in a business. For example, an employee may steal money from the company's cash register. That is economic crime. Ethical misconduct. So with ethical misconduct occurs when business behave dishonestly and unfairly. That is that. Population growth. So with population growth, that is when you're seeing the increase in the number of people in a country, which affects demand for goods and services. So that is that. Illiteracy. Illiteracy means that people cannot read or write, which reduces the chances of employment. Lack of skills. Lack of skills. With lack of skills, that this occurs when workers do not have the required knowledge or training to perform certain jobs. Unavailability of natural resources. So this is when the business may struggle when important natural resources are scarce or unavailable. Inefficiency in the use of resources. Inefficiency or inefficient use of resources. This happens when a business wastes resources such as money, materials, or labor. For example, producing too many products that cannot be sold leads to waste. Exhaustion of natural resources. That's when natural resources are used faster than they can be replaced. Dumping. Now we are on dumping. Dumping occurs when foreign companies sell goods in another country at a very low prices, making it difficult for local business to compete. That is a dumping. That's what we mean when you're saying dumping. Strikes. A strike occurs when workers stop working to demand better wages or working conditions. So that is that. So now let us attend to question 4.2. So 4.2, we are to identify the solutions to piracy implemented by Ham drones in the following statements. So the statements that were given is 4.2 and 4.22. 4.21 says armed drones was worried that other business would occupy their design. So they registered their new invention. 2.2, armed drones also used a very special symbol of flowing sun to enable customers to identify their flows. So now we have to attend to those questions with these given answers. Solutions to piracy from this statement, it's a patent as well as trademark. It's a patent as well as trademark. So we know when we're talking about patent, it's a legal right that protects invention so that no one else can produce or sell it without permission. With trademark, this protects the name, logo, symbol, brand identity of the business. So that is that. So now we are to move on to 4.3. 4.3, we are to explain the purpose of Labor Relation Act 1995, Act 66 of 1995. So the purpose of Labor Relation Act. The purpose of Labor Relation Act. As it says, provides framework where the employees and trade unions or employers work together to discuss matters relating to employment, e.g. wages, conditions of employment. So What this act means is that the act creates a system where employers, and trade unions can discuss the workplace issues. They can discuss the workplace issues. Also, it further on says it promotes orderly negotiations, employee participation in decision making in the workplace. So, meaning to say, the act encourages structured discussion, negotiations between employers and employees. It also promotes resolution of labor disputes. It promotes orderly, not it promotes resolution to labor disputes. That's what I wanted to say. So the act helps to solve workplace conflicts peacefully and fairly. For example, a dispute about unfair dismissal may be resolved through mediation. Promotes fair employment practices. So meaning to say the act ensures that workers are treated fairly without discrimination. Outlines the relationship between employees and employers. Employees and employers. So here we're talking about the fair employment practices. So the act ensures that workers are treated fairly without discrimination. Okay, we are on a relationship between employees and. So what it means is that the act clearly explains the rights and responsibility of both employers and employees. Provides simple procedures for the registration of trade unions and employers organization. So it provides procedures for registration of trade unions and employers organization. That is, the act explains how trade unions and employer organization can legally register. It regulates the rights of trade unions and facilitates collective bargaining and facilitates collective bargaining. So meaning to say the act, when we say it regulates bargaining council and statutory councils, so with the right, it means that the act gives trade unions the legal right to negotiate with employers on behalf of the workers. It regulates the effectiveness of bargaining councils and statutory councils. So meaning to say the act ensures that these councils help employees and employers negotiate industry agreements. Establish workplace forums to promote interest of all employees in the workplace, whether they belong to trade union or not. So we are saying with these workplace forums allow employees to participate in decision affecting the workplace. Allows workplace forums where employees may participate in decision making. So it allows employee participation in the decision making. Meaning to say workers are given the opportunity to contribute ideas and opinions in the workplace decisions. Establish commission for conciliation, mediation, and arbitration to resolve labor disputes through statutory conciliation, mediation, as well as arbitration. Also endorses the right to strike against retrenchment and facilitate labor disputes. Clarifies transfer of contracts and employment procedures. And it also establishes labor courts and labor appeal of courts to deal with labor issues. So that is that. So now we are to be on 4.5. We are to be on 4.5 or 4.4. Discuss the advantages of outsourcing as an avenue for acquiring business. So now we are to attend to that question. 4.4, advantages of outsourcing. Advantages of outsourcing. So that is that. We are on advantages of outsourcing. As he says, outsourcing allows the business to focus on important business activities, rather support activities. So business has access to resources and equipment for specific function. That is when you outsource. The production team is often shortened and quality is often improved because specialists are performing their function for the business. A company is able to reduce cost as outsourcing can lead to a decrease in staff, remuneration and control, and operating costs. The business can focus on its vision goals and apply its staff more effectively in its core business. Improved access to skilled people as the outsourced work will be done highly skilled people without company having to employ them. Fixed cost and over cost are lower for the business. So outsourcing will provide continuity during periods of high staff turnover. So now we have to go to question 4.5. Advise entrepreneurs on legal status and liability of benefit. Advise entrepreneurs on legal status and liability as a benefit of establishing company over other forms of ownership. So here we are on 4.5. Whereas we are saying legal status and liability is a benefit of establishing company over other forms of ownership. A company has its own legal status, trade name, and owns its assets. So they own its assets. Shareholders' private assets are protected as they have limited liabilities. If ever the business go bankrupt, the personal belongings of the owners are not in danger. The shareholders have no direct legal responsibilities. Companies have their own names and these are protected. So that is that. So this is the end of this presentation, grade 11. Let us make use of this paper that was written in Northwest Province, as it is very helpful, as it will prepare us for tests that you're going to write as well as the exams that you're going to face. Thank you very much for your time.